Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of Cascade Community Development, the director, my wife Diane Jackson, and our volunteer staff that told me there, including myself. I also served in the Marine Corps from March 1956 to 1962. But we're honored to host the first Montford Point Marine ceremony in Akron, Ohio, Summit County, to honor the late Corporal James Vernon Stewart. Today is a significant day for us as we gather here in Akron, Ohio, to introduce Marine Gunny Sergeant Robert Weeks, the recruiter for Marine Recruiting Station Commander at the Recruiting Substation. Gunnery Sergeant Weeks is an outstanding leader and a dedicated Marine, and it is a privilege to have him with us today. We are also here to honor the memory of a true American hero, the late Mr. James Stewart, who served our nation as a Montford Point Marine. James Stewart's legacy is one of unwavering dedication, courage, and sacrifice. His commitment to our country and the Marine Corps is a shining example of the values that we hold dear. Gunnery Sergeant Weeks will conduct the ceremony for the presentation to the Congressional Gold Medal to the late James Stewart's son, Preston Stewart. This medal is fitting tribute to an exceptional man who paved the way for countless others, breaking barriers and showing that the spirit of the Marine Corps knows no boundaries. As we remember and honor James Stewart today, let us also reflect on the legacy that he leaves behind. His service reminds us of the sacrifices our Marines make and the profound impact they have on our nation's history. It is through their dedication and courage that we stand here today, united and strong. So thank you for joining us on this special occasion as we celebrate both the service of Gunnery Sergeant Robert Weeks and the memory of the late James Stewart, a Montford Point Marine who will forever be a source of inspiration to us all. Semper Fidelis. At this time, help me to welcome Gunny Sergeant Robert Weeks. God bless you, sir.
Good afternoon. So it took me a long time. I tried to figure out what there was that I could say, what there was that I should say. To be perfectly honest, I didn't find out until not too long ago that Corporal James Stewart, his middle name is the same middle name as mine. So the connection there feels a little more real for me. I spoke to my grandfather before his passing not too long ago, and all we did was speak about the history of the United States, the history of the people that were marginalized, the people that were not given the same types of opportunities. And he said time and time again that he's proud of the journey that it has taken to get here. He's proud of what it has done for him and what it has done for me. And so it's with that I will say that I'm proud to be here, to be the voice for the Marine Corps, to honor this great man that stood at the forefront to change history for all Marines and all people alike. So before we begin, I feel it a need to go over the history of what the Montford Point Marines are and what they were.
When African Americans applied for jobs in the nation's defense industry during the Second World War, they were met with discrimination and hostility. After a September 1940 meeting with President Roosevelt, civil rights leaders threatened to march on Washington. In response, Roosevelt issued Executive Order 8802, effectively banning discrimination in all federal agencies. As it was in civilian life in the 40s, segregation was a reality for America's first black Marines because blacks and whites were not allowed to train together. Montford Point, a camp built exclusively for black recruits, was a stone throw and yet a world away from Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Even as Marines, black men were barred from Lejeune unless accompanied by a white officer. Recruitment of the nation's first black Marines was set to begin June 1st, 1942. At 1 minute after midnight on that date, Alfred Masters, a Langston University student, became the first African American to enlist and be sworn into the United States Marine Corps. On Iwo Jima, they were assigned to service and supply. But when the Japanese attacked, African American Marines dropped their cargo, picked up their weapons, and joined the fight. Despite 2 amphibious trucks disabled from gunfire, a black Marine driver kept coming back to the cheers of soldiers from their foxholes. A fellow Marine called it one of the bravest sights he had ever seen. And Congresswoman Corrine Brown from Florida sponsored a bill to award the Congressional Gold Medal to the Montford Point Marines. It passed unanimously in the House and Senate. On November 23, 2011, President Barack Obama signed the bill into law. Semper Fi, the men proclaimed as they spoke of their struggles and their gratitude. The highest civilian honor in the land is well deserved for their historic service. August 26 has been designated by Congress as Montford Point Marine Day in honor of that day in 1942 when the first African-American Marine recruits reported for basic training. On August 26, 2011, Montford Point Marines were honored in Washington, D.C. by the Marine Corps Commandant with a formal salute at the 8th and I Marine Corps Parade. Gilbert Hashmark Johnson was a veteran of both the Army and the Navy and one of the first African Americans to enlist in the Marine Corps. Johnson was also one of the Marine Corps' first African American drill instructors. In 1974, the Marine Corps renamed the Montford Point camp as Camp Gilbert Johnson, the only military facility in the country named for an African American. As many modern Marines would attest, they owe a debt of gratitude to the Montford Point Marines. At a time when many expected and even hoped they would fail, the men of Montford Point succeeded. From their segregated beginnings in 1942 to battles with foreign enemies and racism at home, they persevered. Thanks to these men, the door is open and the sky is the limit for the present and future members of the few, the proud, the Marines.
Right, so I hope that brought and shed some light on some information that perhaps you did not know and or refreshed your memory about how brave those young men were starting out in those times. So it is at this time that I'm going to introduce the Marine that will be the narrator for the remaining of the ceremony. This is Sergeant Meese.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Sergeant Meese. I will begin by reading a letter signed by the Honorable President Barack Obama, and afterwards I will call attention to orders and be narrating the certificate itself. When I do that, if you can, please rise for the attention to orders. August 25th, 2011. I send greetings to all those honoring the legacy of the Montford Point Marines on their 69th anniversary. Almost 7 decades ago, as our nation was at war, more than 20,000 African American men enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. After completing arduous and segregated basic training at Montford Point Camp, many of these Marines served with distinction during a number of World War II's bloodiest struggles. Some made the ultimate sacrifice in these battles. Others continued their service in Korea and the Vietnam War. Despite being denied the many basic rights, the Montford Point Marines committed to serve our country with selfless patriotism. Choosing to put their lives on the line, these men helped advance civil rights and influenced President Harry Truman's decision to desegregate the armed forces in 1948. Embodying the Marine Corps motto of Semper Fidelis, always faithful, these heroes paved the way for future generations of warriors, regardless of background, to serve in the finest military the world has ever known. On behalf of a grateful nation, I thank you for your service and for your contributions to the cause of freedom at home and around the world. May God bless our men and women in uniform, and may God bless the United States of America. Signed, President Barack Obama. Attention to orders. Certificate of Recognition. United States Congress Congressional Gold Medal awarded to James V. Stewart, Corporal, United States Marine Corps, in recognition of honorable service during the periods of 1942 to 1949, while promoting peace and stability for the United States of America during World War II. The people of this nation are forever grateful. In a unanimous and bipartisan vote by the members of the 112th Congress of the United States, The Congressional Gold Medal Bill, H.R. 2447, was approved to be awarded to the first African American Marine recruits to enlist and attend boot camp training at the segregated camp Montford Point, North Carolina. The 27 June 2012 awarding of the Congressional Gold Medal to the Montford Point Marines, a bill was signed by the President of the United States, President Barack Obama. The Congressional Gold Medal is the highest civilian honor bestowed by the Congress for distinguished achievement. The Montford Point Marines' dedicated contributions of perseverance, courage, and outstanding service on and off the battlefield has inspired social change in the United States, the Marine Corps, and America. Therefore, it will be known that this certificate identifies the recipient as having earned the title Montford Point Marine. His devotion to duty reflects great credit upon himself and was in keeping with the highest traditions of the Marine Corps and the United States Naval Service. Signed, the 25th day of May, in the year of our Lord, 2023, Dr. James T. Everhart, President, National Montford Point Marine Association, and Mr. Ronald C. Johnson, Vice President, National Montford Point Association. Thank you. Gunnery Sergeant Weeks will now be presenting the Certificate of Recognition and a replica of the United States Congressional Gold Medal to the son of James V. Stewart, James Preston Stewart. You may be seated.
Really hard to know what to say. I'm almost in tears here. I'm truly honored at this recognition today. I didn't know what all it was going to entail. I really am not that familiar with the history of the Montford Point Marines and the barriers that they broke down. I know there were, back in those days, there were tons and tons of racial barriers, and that there were, and all I could remember is my dad pursuing the funeral service business, which is what he did for a living. Never dawned upon me the barriers that he had to overcome just to be a Montford Point Marine. I really appreciate that history that I learned today about the Marines and the Montford Point Marines, so thank you also kindly for that, and I really appreciate everybody here who is honoring my dad. I certainly think he's a great man. I've never heard anything bad said about him. Not a whole lot of conversation about him as a Marine, but more so as a funeral director. But again, this is just proof to me and verification to me how great of a man he was. And I'm honored not just to be his son, but just to have to be his legacy. And I try to do my best. I know those are shoes that I always tell people I'll never be able to fill. But he was a great man, and he has been truly missed since he passed away. So I just thank you all so very kindly for coming out and paying honor and paying tribute to him for his efforts to be as a Montford Point Marine. And my heart is I just can't. I just didn't know what to expect coming here today, and I'm truly honored, and I'm truly appreciate everything that everyone here has done, the efforts that you've all made to make this happen. Marines. I always hear that that's the toughest branch of the military, and I always knew that whenever my dad knew that if someone had been a Marine, they would always get to talking. And if I was waiting for him, I'd be waiting around for a long time, because they would just talk and reminisce. And he is probably smiling right now down upon us. God rest his soul. And I'm sure he is truly grateful to be being honored today. So thank you for having me today. Wow, this worked out great. I happen to be off today. All that time I was wondering to myself, I want to be there. How am I going to be there? But even if I had to work today, I would have made it a point to be here. So I'm honored. Thank you so much. it's just, my heart is just overjoyed right now. So thank you all so kindly for coming out and honoring and giving recognition to my dad. Thank you. Thank you.
At this time, would you please stand for the playing of the national anthem, Anchors Aweigh, and the Marines hymn. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marine.
This concludes our ceremony. I will leave you with one quote from the late El Hajj Malik Shabazz, known as Malcolm X. The quote was simply, "Stumbling is not falling." And though our people and people from those times started off the race a little late, stumbling out of the gates, that was not the end. And your father proved that point. So it's with great honor that I'm here. I do appreciate you all for having us. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, everybody ready to smile.